Okay, so by now, Marvel's latest film, The Marvels, has come out. And if you've been paying attention to the reviews in the box office, it's getting trashed in both. The critics hated, well, I shouldn't say hated, but I mean, it's not as low as Batman versus Superman, but it's not great either. I think it's only at 60 something percent at the time I'm recording this. And then the box office scores, it looks like it's set to be Marvel's lowest debut at the box office since the inception of the MCU. So, yeah, that's not good either. In fact, that's quite terrible. And I'm not really here to talk about the Marvels, the film itself. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a Marvel film since Thor's Love and Thunder that came out back in July of last year, 2022. What I want to talk about is the MCU's problems. For me, I've seen this coming a long mile away because MCU has had problems since even its early phases. Like back in Phase One, there were problems there, and they've managed to overcome it. They managed to last so far for various reasons, but I'm not surprised that the chickens have come home to roost within Phase 4 and Phase 5. I'm going to go over what I consider to be Marvel's problems and how I think they should fix them. The first problem I've noticed since the beginning of MCU is they don't always have a script ready to go when it's time for production. And that's a huge problem. Story is king. If you want a good film, novel, or whatever, you need to have a good story in place first before you even start, you know, filming or writing. You need to make sure you have a good story in place that you're ready to tell. And Marvel, they don't always have a good script in place or any script at all. And sometimes it works out okay, like with Iron Man 1. John Favreau's good at improvising, and plus Robert Downey Jr. He's also good at improvising. And his charm, he just has so much charm and screen presence that you could just watch him read a restaurant menu, and you know you'd be transfixed because he's that good. But for every Iron Man 1, there's an Iron Man 2, a Thor: The Dark World, and a Multiverse of Madness. So yeah, they need to have a strong script in place. Their best, it's no coincidence that their best films, Marvel's best films, and just best films in general, are when they have a strong script in place, like with the Avengers, or Captain America: The Winter Soldier, or the Infinity War. Another problem I noticed that Marvel is having is their their since Phase 4 they've upped the amount of projects they're doing. When they first started, it would just be like 1 to 2 movies a year, and then with Phase 3, they went up to 3 movies a year, and then Phase 4, they started doing like their normal 3 to 4 films a year, but they also are adding a bunch of television shows in the mix. And I think that's caused the quality to drop way down. Kevin Feige is still overseeing everything, but he's only one man. He can only do so much. He can oversee every project to make sure it's of high quality. And because of that, we've gotten a lot of bad stuff. I would say mostly bad stuff. I haven't really enjoyed most of the projects in Phase 4, and I haven't even seen anything in Phase 5 yet. I haven't seen Ant-Man, Quantum Mania, any of the TV shows, or like I said earlier, the Marvels. So what I think Kevin Feige needs to do is one, end the TV shows because most of them aren't that good. At least the ones I've seen. I saw all of WandaVision. I saw Moon Knight. I saw, unfortunately, She-Hulk. And I saw the first season of Loki and a bunch of others, and none of them were very good in my opinion. They weren't good at all. So if I were Kevin Feige, I would drop the TV shows because they're not very good, and I don't think everybody's watching them anyway, and just focus on the films. Go back to just doing like 3 or 4 films a year, and just forget about the TV shows for now. That's not important. And then also a problem I noticed that Kevin Feige is having is that, and the NCU is having, and then Kevin Feige is having this problem by extension is there's no second in command. Kevin Feige, for each of the first 3 phases, he had a second in command, usually a creative who could oversee the film projects when he couldn't. Like, for example, in Phase 1, it was mostly Jon Favreau and to a lesser extent, Zach Penn. And then later in Phase 1, when Joss Whedon came on to do the Avengers, he signed up to be like their main creative director and he oversaw the stuff and gave feedback in Phase 2. And then when he left, the Russo's brothers took over for Phase 3 and helped oversee everything and gave feedback. To my knowledge, there's nobody doing that in Phase 4. It's just Kevin Feige overseeing everything in Phase 4 and Phase 5. And so he needs a good second in command, preferably somebody who's a strong, versatile screenwriter. Because, like I said earlier, the script, the story is king, and we need to have somebody who's a good storyteller in order for the Marvel films to go back to being good. So that's something else we need to correct the MCU. Also, and this isn't that big of a problem in my opinion, but it is a bit of a problem. The MCU needs to stop politicizing everything. Like, I first noticed it starting late in Phase 3 near the end, like with Endgame. They had all the female characters come together. Like, they, you know, if you've seen Endgame, I think everybody on Earth has seen Endgame. Like, in the final battle against Thanos, all the female heroes somehow managed to come together in this big chaotic battle to rally around Captain Marvel, as in this like great ostentatious display of girl power. I mean, that was just ridiculous. And then it just kept getting worse with their Phase 4 projects. Like in Black Widow, you had in the beginning of the film, you see 3 kids playing, and they all happen to be of different race. One's black, one's white, one's Asian. And then later on in the film, you got Natasha's sister, her adopted sister, Yelena, complaining about the way she poses and talking about how it's disgusting and making fun of it. You know, trying to talk about sexism, and it just kind of, it all just falls flat. It's, for me, when Marvel does all that politicizing stuff, it's like they're trying to capitulate to people who were complaining about all the social injustices going on at the time period. You know, they're trying to give people what they want instead of giving them what they need. Don't give the audience what they want, because that's never going to work, because everybody's going to work something different. Give the audience what they need. And well, not all of us, but most of us need the same thing in storytelling. That's just a well-told story. So instead of politicizing, focus on telling a good story. So to sum up, what the MCU needs to do to get back on track, if it wants to go back to being this epic, unstoppable juggernaut that it once was, it needs to, one, make sure they have a strong script in place for all their films before they enter production, so you don't run into problems like you did for the Multiverse of Madness, Ant-Man, Quantumania, and so on and so forth. And even some of their Phase 1 projects, like I said, Ant-Man and... I'm not Ant-Man, sorry, but Iron Man and Iron Man 2 have these problems as well. Second thing they need to focus on is Kevin Feige needs a strong second in command who can oversee the scripts and the projects when he can't. Somebody like a Joss Whedon or the Russo brothers, and hopefully somebody who's a strong, versatile screenwriter, because like I said, story is king. Third, they need to cut back on the amount of projects. It needs to be quality over quantity. And then last, they need to focus on getting the audience what they need and not what they want. If they do these things, I'm sure they can get the MCU back to its previous glory before things completely go off the rails and nobody cares about the MCU and it's treated like what is the DC Cinematic Universe called these days? The DCEU or what? I can't recall. But before they get that bad to how the DC was doing back when Zack Snyder was overseeing things, they need to just follow my 4 steps to get things back on track. Anyway, I'm Kahoko. These have been my PC Pop Culture Musings, and I hope you enjoyed this recording. If you do, please subscribe and like. Take care.